People don't disappear loudly. They vanish in places no one watches, on roads no one remembers, in houses that don't ask permission to keep you. Somewhere in America, there's a road that never learned how to let go. A house once stood at the end of it, not broken, not abandoned, not empty to watch people arrive. It learned how they breathed, and then it kept them. The records are incomplete. The witnesses stopped talking, and the road still waits. This is not a ghost story. It is not a legend. In 1911, Briar Hollow Road was not a place people lived. It was a place they passed through quickly, eyes fixed ahead, hands tight on the reins or the steering wheel, hoping the road would end before night had a chance to settle in. The trees grew too close there, their branches leaning inward as if they were listening. Even during the day, the light felt weaker, dimmed somehow, as though the sun itself avoided the place out of caution. Till the very end of the road stood a single house. It wasn't large. It wasn't falling apart. That was what unsettled people the most. The white siding was intact. The house stood 2 stories tall. The windows were unbroken, the curtains drawn neatly inside. On some evenings, smoke could be seen rising slowly from the chimney. It looked lived in, yet no one ever saw who lived there. The first official record connected to the house came from a county land survey in late autumn of that same year. A government surveyor named Henry Mallory had been assigned to mark property lines near Briar Hollow Road. For several days, his journal entries were ordinary and precise. He wrote about soil conditions, tree density, and subtle changes in elevation. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. On the final day, his handwriting changed. The entry was short, written with a pressure that pressed the ink deep into the page. House at end of road. Occupied. No record of deed. Owner refused name. Would not step outside. That was the last line Henry Mallory ever wrote. When he failed to return, a search party followed the route he had mapped. They found his horse first, tied neatly to a fence post near the house. The saddle was still warm, as though the animal had only just been left there. The front door of the house was closed. Unlocked. Inside, they found Henry's notebook resting on the kitchen table. His compass lay beside it, its needle spinning endlessly, never settling. His coat was draped carefully over the back of a chair. There were no signs of violence, no blood, no indication of a struggle, and no body. The house was empty, but the fireplace ashes were still warm. When word of the disappearance spread, the locals were questioned. Most avoided answering directly. Some pretended not to know anything at all. That was when an unspoken rule finally surfaced. No one went to the house after sunset. No one knocked on the door. And no one looked inside the windows. One elderly farmer eventually admitted that the house had been there longer than he could remember. Longer than his father could remember. Someone always lives there, he said quietly. Just not the same someone. When asked what he meant, he refused to explain. Over the next decade, people occasionally reported seeing signs of life at the house again. A woman hanging laundry on the line in the afternoon. A man standing on the upstairs landing, watching the road in silence. Sometimes just before dusk, a child would be seen sitting on the porch steps, perfectly still. But whenever anyone tried to approach, the figures were gone. Mail left at the end of the road disappeared. Groceries delivered there vanished overnight. Once, a census taker claimed someone answered the door and politely declined to give their name, age, or place of origin. The house was never empty long enough to decay. Someone always came back. In February of 1922, the screaming began. Not shouting, not crying. Screaming, the kind that tears itself raw. It came from Briar Hollow Road and lasted nearly an hour. People later said it sounded like more than one voice, overlapping, panicked, desperate. The sound rose and fell, sometimes breaking into sobbing before starting again. No one went to investigate. By morning, the road was covered in deep footprints leading away from the house. Dozens of them, different sizes, different patterns, but none led back. The front door stood open. Inside, furniture had been overturned. Scratches covered the walls at shoulder height. Beneath the staircase, investigators found clumps of hair caught on exposed nails. some gray, some dark, and some lighter than any local family could identify. Still, no bodies were found. Sheriff Edgar Boone was not a superstitious man. In 1924, after hearing the story for years, he decided to put an end to them. He arrived at the house before dusk with 2 deputies. Together, they searched every room. They found nothing. No hidden compartments. No tunnels. No signs of recent occupation. When the deputies left, Edgar stayed behind. He wanted to prove something to the town and to himself. That night, the deputies waited down the road. They later reported seeing the lights inside the house turn on one by one, though no one had been inside when they left. At exactly 2:17 a.m., a single gunshot echoed down Briar Hollow Road. Then silence. At dawn, they returned. They found Edgar Boone seated at the kitchen table, his hands folded neatly in front of him. His revolver lay unloaded beside his chair. His face showed no fear, only understanding. Behind him, pressed into the dust on the wall, were dozens of overlapping handprints. None of them matched his. After that, the house was officially condemned. Road access was restricted. Maps slowly stopped listing Briar Hollow Road altogether. Yet records continued to surface. A hospital log from 1931 noted a man admitted after claiming he had escaped the house that keeps people. A priest's journal described a confession from a woman who said she lived there briefly and felt herself being slowly replaced. In the 1940s, a set of fingerprints taken from inside the house failed to match any known human pattern. Every time investigators returned, the house appeared freshly occupied, the dust disturbed, the air warm. Someone had always just missed them. In 1956, the house burned down. No cause was ever determined. Firefighters found nothing in the rubble. No remains, no furniture, no personal belongings. It was as if the house had never existed at all, except Briar Hollow Road still remains. Even now, drivers report their headlights reflecting off windows that no longer exist. They speak of engines stalling, GPS signals failing, and some say that if you stop at the very end of the road, turn off your engine, and listen closely, you can hear movement in the trees. Footsteps, waiting, because the house never needed walls anymore. It only needed someone willing to stay.